Welcome back, listeners of the Tron podcast. This is your host, Rashad Woods, and in the building today across the world, and very nice to share a moment of our time, international speaker, podcaster, author, really a Swiss Army knife and a doer of good who's going to give you some really good vibes on how to live the best life possible that you have. John Giftah, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much for having me, Rashid. It's such a joy for me to be with you and with all of you listening to me or watching me from across the globe. I'm so glad and honored to be with you today.
Yeah, and first of all, you do this while being a full-time aerospace engineer, and so obviously you wear many hats, and you're very, very dedicated to what you do outside of your normal life. And your podcast is fuel for the soul. What exactly got you to say, I'm going to do this on top of this as well?
I always believe that, we can only be our best when we walk in our purpose. One of my debut books that you can see here, which became a #1 bestseller on
Yeah, I saw
Amazon,
that.
is called Unveil Your Purpose.
Yeah.
So this is an easy read for anybody. And without me trying to sound like I'm pushing my book here, the
You
fact
should.
is that
That's what this show is for.
yeah, but the fact is that this book is so good, right? In the sense it became a #1 bestseller. But even though it's a good book, if I kept it in a fish market, it's not going to sell any copies. Why? Because this book is going to find its value only in a maybe in a book club, in a library, or somebody who loves to read books, or in book festivals and all of that. Same way, what I say to people is that only when you are doing what you are born to do, created to do, called to do, you'll be able to thrive and really excel. And my gift or my calling is to just inspire people. That comes naturally to me. And for me, I cannot imagine a day going to bed without encouraging someone, without doing what I loved, without like it could be a video on YouTube, it could be a
Sure.
podcast episode, it could be anything. My heart is like, personally, I've told people that, till the day I die, I should make sure that I at least made an impact in the lives of at least one person before I die on that
That's
particular day.
amazing.
So that's been my heart to, so even though things are difficult, working with a full-time corporate job at the same time, running a ministry, running, the podcast, the YouTube channel, and all of these things, that's what drives me, because that's what I'm called to do or born to do, because that's what helps me unleash my full potential.
I think what was interesting was I listened to one of your quotes and you said, unveil your purpose. And it said there's a difference between living your life with a purpose and living a purposeful life. Right.
Yeah.
And, from all the times that I've talked with people, it's very easy to go on autopilot and just get caught up in the course of the day and quote unquote, just surviving the day, so to speak. Meaning that, hey, I just need to make it. I just need to look at the clock and it's 4:30 and I just have to make it to 5 o'clock. And then everything else is just gravy on top of it. So I can, and so to step outside of that window and to actually acknowledge for yourself that that's not the life that I want to continue to live, or there's more purpose behind who I am. It takes some self-reflection.
Yes, it does. I mean, see, this whole journey didn't happen on like how they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. This is not something like, what, I just read the book and become, will start walking in my purpose. It's not going to happen. At the same time, in line with what you said, I don't know if you mentioned this already, that I'm also a world record holder for Scooby Doo, and I'm going to talk about that in the coming next few minutes. But I had a newspaper time when I was actually featured in a newspaper for my Scooby Doo collection.
That's
It's
awesome,
called the Indian Express. So when I take a newspaper, right, I can use it for a variety of reasons, right? I can use it to clean something. I can use it to make paper boats. I can use a newspaper when it's in a hot day. I can just blow some hair towards myself.
For sure.
You can serve a multitude of purposes. But if you're using it for all of if you're using it for all of that and not to read the news, then you're not using the full potential of the newspaper or what it was actually created for. So that's what drove me to write this book and to challenge people, because I'm saying, if you're not happy going for the 9 to 5, maybe you're born or created to do something else or something more. You're not just here to just while away time and just complaining the whole day. And even the other day, a few minutes ago, I had a conversation with a family member, and I said, you know what, I can't just come to the end of my life after like maybe 40 or 50 years down the line and then wonder like, oh my gosh, all I did my entire life was just complain about my job.
Isn't that
But
amazing?
that's not the life to live, right? Like I believe that if you start walking in your purpose, walking in your calling, walking in what you are born to do, find that and go in that direction, everything is like, I'm not saying it's all going to be easy. It's going to have its own challenges and
Sure,
discouragements and all of that.
sure.
But
Without a
the
doubt.
fulfillment that comes in doing that is immense. You can't explain it with anything else.
I think the most fascinating thing is once you actually get out of that complaining circle, the people who complained all the time will suddenly want to wonder why you don't talk to them as much, right? And it has nothing, right? It's kind of right, and so now it becomes it's and it doesn't matter what vice you have, whether. And I'm not saying I'm not judgmental at all, but when you
Mm,
decide that certain things are not for you, you almost become the weird outsider for not participating in certain activities anymore, right?
mm,
If you suddenly start going to the gym, you have, and hey, all your friends are out, eating junk food, and you're like, hey, I just can't do that anymore. And it's a tough, lonely road sometimes. For instance, like myself, I'm a nerd at heart, right? And so even if I do watch sports and I love certain sports, but I can't consume sports all day, right? I
mm,
would much rather on a Saturday, even if it's boxing or MMA or NFL or basketball or football,
mm,
I'll watch a documentary if there's as opposed to one of those type of events, depending on
mm,
if it's a lower level event that I'm not really interested in. I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to watch a documentary or read something
mm.
fascinating, because again, something that's compact and in the moment doesn't improve me as a person overall. The
Yeah.
sports score from the night before may not make me a better person long term if I read and learned something.
Mm.
Right.
So I get what you're saying, because like this is a very lonely path, right? Like for
Yeah.
example, when I say like a Scooby Doo character, it's like,
Yeah.
come on, man, you better grow up,
Yeah. Right.
as you can
Right.
see here behind me. I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, I think you can see a Scooby Doo poster on one side, and you can see my ministry logo on the other side. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like in the natural, the two never go together. Like, I mean, come
Not
on,
close.
it's a very unique path. It's a very different thing, and a lot of times when you're going in the very unique path, you're the only one going, and that is when it comes down to this, right? Like, um what is unique, what is different about you is what will actually make the difference around you, right?
For
Like if
sure.
you're just being like being like a copy of everybody else, you're not going to make any difference.
No
For
question.
instance, one of the things in my collection, this is actually a Scooby-Doo Daphne character in the form
Mm-hmm.
of a Barbie. Okay, one of
Okay.
the things unique about this is that this is a very limited edition piece that
Mm-hmm.
is from the 2002 Scooby-Doo real movie. So
Mm-hmm.
what gives more value to this is the fact that there are very it's a limited edition, like you don't have
Right.
many of this
Right.
out there. So
Right.
likewise, or if there are hundreds or millions of Barbies out there, but what is unique is what gives the value to this. And likewise,
For sure.
what is unique to you, and when you're walking in that unique purpose or calling, even though it is a lonely path, this is a lonely character out there, but that's what helps it to stand out. And that's why I challenge people, don't worry about the fact that you are going through a lonely path. Like for me, for instance, because of this, I have to forget about watching. A lot of times people say, even in at work or anywhere, people will be talking about, oh, I was binge watching these things on Netflix, I was watching all these movies. And for me, I don't have much to talk because I hardly watch, or I hardly get time to
Correct.
watch anything.
Right.
So
You-
but then I always look at it that way, instead of watching movies, maybe I'm going to create movies. Instead of watching
right.
stuff, I'm
Right.
creating stuff.
I think the interesting part too is that once you actually, it's not. I don't even say it's as lonely. You gravitate towards people that you suddenly find are like minded like yourself, and I'm sure in your
Mm,
ministry and in your path and in your unique traits that are unique specifically to you. you found
Mm,
out that there's a lot more people who think like you than you actually initially thought. And the internet
yes.
has done a great job of connecting those people, right? So
Mm,
I would challenge anybody who thinks that their thought process or their state of mind is not quote unquote mainstream or acceptable. It's a lot more people out there that think like you do, right? So when I
mm,
created this podcast, my goal was to talk to people who have inspiring stories, trajectories, and went off the beaten path. And then, the flooding of requests wanting to get on this show just came through. And I'm like, well, boy, there's a
mm,
lot of people out there that think exactly
mm,
like that process, because it does take bravery to think on your own.
yes. I mean, it is. See, for example, like as I said, like for instance, the minute you are saying that you're a preacher, what people say, "Oh, I want you to wear a coat suit, and I want you to go and like preach in front of a pulpit." Like for me, I don't. I'm not that confident as myself in a coat suit as I am in. For instance, if you can see my T-shirt, it is a unique T-shirt which has the. It's a Scooby Doo and Shaggy actually
Yeah,
praying, and it has a line, prayer changes things. It's a
yeah,
simple thing, right? For instance, it's self-designed. Okay, I designed this, and
mhm,
I have a page on Instagram called the Scooby Doo Pastor. It's a lot of times people just criticize, like, how can you do this? This is not the way it's supposed to be. But like when we start walking in that unique piece of like thing, that is when, like you said, I'm really amazed myself, like to hear that there are so many people who are finding very unique things, and that unique things is actually making the difference around. Like you said, now as a preacher, when I started out, like, okay, you know what, I'm the Scooby Doo pastor. People laugh, people mock.
yeah,
But now, when I got the world records, when I started moving in, like, officially, at sometimes I am asked to take sessions for children
yeah.
using my Scooby Doo characters. I go around, like, yeah, this is Scooby Doo, and let's learn a lesson from this. So that's a very unique approach. And
Of
then people
course,
start realizing that is very different,
right.
and it's impactful. At the same time, like when I'm walking in that, I'm more confident to express myself. I don't have to
Mhm.
be put in a mold saying this is the way to do. Like sometimes
Right,
I'll be talking and I'll suddenly say, "Right, Ruby Louie," like in Scooby-Doo's voice. Like people don't expect that. you know but I always tell people, like, sometimes even if it sounds weird, right? Like for instance,
right, for
like
sure.
we often say, okay, let's talk about Mr. Bean, for instance, right?
Oh,
When
what a
he
great
starts
show.
saying hallelujah, hallelujah,
Yeah,
hallelujah,
yeah.
like, it's weird, but that's what catches everybody's attention.
You know what's
Like,
crazy about Mr. Bean? I hate to cut you off. I love that show, by the way. You would have thought that show had like 100, like had like 5 seasons. It has 17 or 16 episodes as a whole.
yes,
Six.
yes.
Literally, I went on Hulu one time. I don't know if Hulu's in India, so
Mm,
but like I
uh,
literally turned it on because I wanted to rewatch it, right? Because I remember seeing it
mm,
on all the time as a kid, and I thought, I'm
yes.
like, 16 episodes. I'm like, there's got to be more than this. Because I remember it was on for
Mm,
like 4 years. But there's 16 episodes of Mr. Bean.
yes,
That's it.
yes.
But it was so unique in that short amount of time that it's
Mm,
timeless, right?
yes,
It's timeless. It was, if you're honest with yourself, that show was only on for either 1 year or two tops,
yes,
but it had that big of a cultural impact.
yes. See, that's what it is, right? Like, it's not about how many episodes, or it's not about how long you do. Like, what if,
Yes,
that one or the few that you do is made such an impact that people are
absolutely.
talking about it even after years, right? Like Mr.
Right.
Bean, for that matter. Or even there's a show from the 1970s called the Mind Your Language. I don't know if you've come across it.
I'm
It's
not
it's
familiar with that one now.
You're not. Okay, so Mind Your Language has only 3 seasons, though,
Okay.
from the 1970s. There were 4 seasons, but the fourth one is like out. But the three
Yeah.
seasons is, but if you watch it, even if you watch it a million times, you'd still laugh, because it's a very unique blend between learning grammar and the culture of that time, and
Yeah.
with comedy. You know what I mean? Like,
Beautiful.
what I mean to say is, like, it need not be relevant for the day, but still you make such an impact. You know what I mean? Like,
For
a lot
sure.
of shows came up, they just died down. But
Right.
some things that make an impact is like that, when they have that blend of uniqueness to it. Let me just give an example, right?
For sure.
I'm sure you know this character, Taz in
Tasmanian
music.
devil.
Yeah, the
Of course.
Tasmanian devil, yeah, Taz. So this is Taz, and here's Scooby Doo, right?
Right.
So these two are unique pieces. Now, what makes this a unique piece? This is a unique piece of pop where there is a mashup between Taz and Scooby Doo.
Hmm.
Okay, now
Okay.
there is none like this anywhere, but that's what makes this so unique and stands out so
Wonderful.
well, right?
Right.
It has the characteristics of Scooby Doo as well as the characteristics of Taz merged together, and that's
Yeah.
what brings in a very unique product. And
Right.
that's what I challenge people, that you don't sometimes you don't need to even come out or create something brand new. It could be just thinking something out of the box, like
Of course.
taking something different. you know
Of course.
um for me, like, it's like taking something called Scooby Doo and taking the past apart and merging.
Right.
Taking Scooby Doo and Tasmanian Devil, and then you get this. So
Right.
sometimes it's all about thinking differently and being
Right.
bold enough to walk in it. That's what makes the difference.
I think that's
So,
unique, right? Because in a world of billions of people, the one thing, and this isn't just a person thing; it's a company's thing
mhm,
too, right? They suddenly latch on to trends and fads because they think that that will make them money or bring in a customer base, or they can be what you would be like, like go viral, so to speak, and then
yes,
the
yes,
viral will lead to bigger and better
mhm,
things for themselves.
yeah,
But sometimes the person that goes viral, that's who they are. So like somebody who goes viral, in a small 15-second, 10-second, 5-second clip, whatever, that's really
mm,
who that person really is. And then you'll try to do that, or somebody else will, and you're the cheap imitator because that's not authentically who you really are. Right. So it doesn't
exactly.
resonate or have the lasting staying power that it
Mm,
would for the person who originally went viral. Whether they did something positive or whether they did something negative, I'm not here to judge the merits of it. But they
mhm,
went viral because that's who they really are. You know what I'm
yes,
saying?
true.
And now you try to do it, and then all of a sudden it comes across as a cheap carbon copy.
Yes,
And then companies are guilty of it too, right? They like, oh,
yes,
somebody came out with a particular product, right? And then next
mhm,
thing you know, a company wants to get that customer base, and then they try to come out with that product, and then they cheapen and take shortcuts because they just wanted to make a quick buck.
yes. And that is why I always make sure that like, how much ever I'm tempted to use like, how do I say this, uh this is what somebody else said, or this is the
Mhm.
the SEO title that somebody else used, and I want to use the same just so that I can get virality. It's not going to work out.
Correct.
Like, that's where you need to be confident in walking in your unique calling. Now, for instance,
Absolutely.
even with regard to this desire of setting a world record, right?
Right.
I know that, for instance, the Scooby Doo record for the largest collection in the world is set by two different people in Canada,
All
and
right.
that's over 1,800 pieces, if I'm not wrong, by a girl called
Wow.
Danny, and
Yeah.
another person called Rachel. 1,400 pieces. That was first set first, and then Danny broke that record. Now,
Yeah.
on to be honest, I know that I don't stand a chance to set that record, because first things first, they've been collecting this for well over, like, 30, 35, 40 years, because they have that option where they go to thrift stores, they get these $1 Scooby-Doo pieces.
Yeah.
And to be honest, many of these things that I bought, for instance, like even the Scooby-Doo, or a lot of things. I mean, like, to be honest, I have to spend a huge sum of money to get them,
Sure.
right? Like, because the we have the delivery charges and the
Mm.
import charges, and they cost like a buck. Now, for instance, to give you the context, this particular Shaggy of
Yeah.
Scooby Doo, his wig. When I bought this, if you look at the Indian currency value, this is around 1,500 Indian rupees.
Yeah.
Now, with the delivery and the import tax, this cost me around like 9,000 Indian rupees. Now think about how it
I don't
gets
know what the
changes, right?
equivalency of the currency exchange is, but that seems like a bet.
It is a lot. It is a lot. So
Woo.
at the same time, now just imagine now, even if you say 9,000 Indian rupees or 10,000 Indian rupees, that's around like, that's, I mean, like 700, I mean, like a dollar. So I'm not sure. I'm just
Yeah.
putting
But
it
the
in
point is that it's a
perspective. Yeah.
it's a costly endeavor.
Yeah, it is a lot. At the same time, I mean, I think one of the pieces that I have is a Scooby-Doo chess piece. If you want, I can share the image with you, because I can't bring the whole piece.
Yeah.
That cost me around 22,000 Indian rupees. That's
Wow.
22,000 Indian rupees. That's, I think that would be around $300 or something like that, if I'm not wrong.
That's
So
amazing.
think about it. Like I realized that if I were to compete with somebody else setting the highest record, it's never going to happen for me.
Right.
I'm going to go broke. Then that's when I thought something differently. Like, okay, if I can't do this, can I do something else to set a
Of
record?
course.
And
Of
that's
course.
when I came up with an idea. Again, I can't share maybe I can share the image with you how I set it. So this is the world record that I set. What I did was, from head to toe, I covered myself with all Scooby Doo everyday items. Like,
Hmm.
what are the things you would think of? Like, you would have a Scooby Doo wallet, or you would have a Scooby Doo, lanyard.
This is one of the
Like
most unique
everyday
things I've
items.
seen in a long time.
Yes, and then you would think of something like a Scooby Doo currency note, or you would think of, I need a Scooby Doo
Awesome.
toothbrush. So, this is how I thought. Or for instance, of course, if it's a hot day, you would want to wear a Scooby Doo going glass. You know. So what I did was, I just collected like all the everyday items that we use of
Yeah.
Scooby Doo, and then I set a world record of, how, I don't know if you've seen, there people who set a record of the largest number of bees on their body. I don't know if you've seen that. So
No,
that's
I haven't seen that
got
one yet.
this idea, like, if you can have the largest number of bees on a person's body, largest number of Scooby Doo items on a person's body. Like, that's the idea I thought of, and then I set the world record. So I'm not competing with anybody, and if somebody wants to
Right.
break the record, let them
Yeah.
go ahead. But
Yeah.
my intention is, I got a unique idea and I went with it, and I'm happy about it. So
Well, there's a famous quote out there. I'm not sure who it's attributed to, but I've seen it attributed to a famous deceased rock star named Kurt Cobain from Nirvana. He said, "I laugh at you. You laugh at me because I'm different. I laugh at you because you're all the same." Right. So I I don't know if that. I mean, I've seen it associated with him. I'm a big Nirvana fan, but I can't attest if
okay.
it's directly attributed to him. But that being
Mm,
said, once you actually to do your own unique thing, you have to be willing to be laughed at. Right. You
yes.
have to be willing to. It sounds like cheesy. It sounds like corny. Like you have to have a certain level of like, I'm probably going to be mocked for this, even if
Mm,
it's just internally in your own head and nobody does it directly. But you
yes.
have to be willing to say, okay, yeah, people will probably think I'm a little silly. They'll probably get a good chuckle out of it. But the
Mm,
reality is about it, I simply don't care. Right.
yes.
I'm not going to live my life on what you believe and think. And, that takes a certain level of confidence. It takes a certain level of obliviousness to what's taking around you.
Yeah.
And then usually the people that are laughing or having, a good time, and we all laugh. I mean, I laughed at
Mm,
things that, people do,
mm,
mannerisms, whatever the case might be. But that means that there's something more wrong with them than me. Right.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so like if your insecurities or your thought process is that because I decided to act or move myself in a different path, then that's just how you have to feel. And to be honest with you, people can't live their lives wondering what other people think.
That's so true. I mean, I was actually reminded of how people, for instance, right? Like, they initially said that the Earth was the Earth was flat. Somebody said, the Earth
Absolutely.
is on a
And they kill people for for saying other
Mhm.
things. They
Yeah,
kill people for having different even when they
the different.
proved that the world wasn't flat.
Yes.
Right.
So, but the thing is this: truth of the matter is, no matter how people's opinions were, nothing changed the actual truth about how the Earth was.
Yes. Correct.
Like, the
For
Earth was
sure.
not like, what, I think I should be flat, and it became flat.
Oh
It
yeah.
didn't
Or
do
how the
that.
sun revolved around the earth, and then it's like
Yes.
I hate to break this to you, and but think about the people, and I hate to cut you off, who had to be challenged. Now it's just you have satellites, you have all these other things. But picture
Mm,
yourself in ancient times going against the council or going against the senators and all these other people. And
mhm.
you're like, it's kind of like in Superman when Jor-El is telling them Krypton is going to explode. And everybody's telling him, like, nope, it's not going to blow up. It's not. And he's like, no, I'm really telling you this planet's going to blow up. And and you have to be the one person in the room to try to tell that group of people, like, this is not what you think that it is.
That's true, and at the same time, I enjoy doing that. Being Because see, the thing is, this a lot of times, even in my life, right? Like people laughed and mocked at me. About like 2 weeks ago, I completed like 13 years of me, like running my podcast and all of these things.
Yeah.
People laughed and people mocked, and eventually my podcast started growing up the charts to a point where, especially in India under Christianity, it started ranking like at number one and all of that, and
Yeah.
that enabled me to interview a lot of renowned guests, like including some Hollywood actresses
I
and all of those.
saw. I
And
saw.
that at that point, I was like, who's having the last laugh? I mean, I'm not saying it with pride, but I'm
Oh,
saying
right. You knew
people.
what you doing was the right thing. You knew.
Yes, yes. So that's what I challenge people. Like the very people who laughed and mocked at would be like, okay, good job. So
You know, I mean, it's the truth. I mean, right? Like, think how many people laughed at, in college when, maybe Bill Gates is in the nerd club and he's working on computers and everybody like, dude, you're working on a computer. Who's going to use a computer? What are you talking about, dude? And
yeah,
then next thing you know, like all those people that created these multi-billion-dollar companies and have been infinitely successful, their friends were having the good time and they're tinkering in their garage.
yes.
Hey man, come watch the sports game. Hey man, we're going out to eat. Like, no, I need to finish this and that I'm working on. They're like, dude, man, like, come on.
Mm,
And they're shaking their head at him. And then 10 years later, they're like, dang, that's what that dude was working on.
true. It's
You know
it's
what I mean?
kind of like reminds me of how I brought just two of my Scooby Doo ghosts here. You can see the all these ghosts in Scooby Doo. They make all the noise. They scare
Yeah,
the people. They try to
yeah,
silence. They do everything. But at the end of the story, when you unmask them, they're powerless. So
right, correct.
likewise in your life, there may be people who are trying to discourage you, stop
Of
you,
course.
harm you. They try to do all sorts of things. But if you continue to do what you're called to do, like how Scooby Doo and the gang, they're not running away from. Of course they run initially, but then
Right,
they keep in for the long haul, try to solve the mystery, do what is right. What happens? They eventually come out victorious.
right.
They, so to speak, unmask these villains. We will unmask who was right and who was wrong in the end. So
Right. Well, and I'll just, one of the things I take martial arts. So I have a black belt in Tung Sudo Karate. I've talked to a couple different guests about my martial arts, and I'm not a
mm,
professional fighter, right? Like, so for anybody who's listening,
mm,
I'm a martial artist. I take martial arts, but I'm not a professional fighter on any level. I've done tournaments, right? But
okay.
and I have a black belt and a brown belt and another style Taekwondo, and I've taken other different styles, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. But one thing they tell you is that you have to go towards the aggression. You can you're not aggressive inherently, but in order to
Mm,
defend yourself properly, you have to walk towards the aggression to diffuse the aggression. And that's not to say that's an analogy that I'm making is that in order to actually resolve certain things like the Scooby Doo analogy you made, you have to go
mm,
towards things that are going to make you uncomfortable, that are going to
yeah.
challenge you. And, it's like like if somebody's trying to hit you with a baseball bat, the hardest
Mm,
part of getting hit with a baseball bat is at the end of the swing. So if you want to stop getting hit from the baseball bat, you have to
mm,
walk towards the bat because you're
yes.
nullifying the power that to get a
Mm,
full torque behind it. So, like
mm,
you said, unmasking the villain, walking towards things that make you uncomfortable, being your
yeah.
unique self, even when it can cause mockery, is something that's
Mm.
a very, very powerful thing.
Yes, in line with that, again, this is not Scooby. This is coming back to the TAS and the Looney Tunes analogy.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you see, if you see, typically what happens with the minute TAS comes into the place, and there's an announcement made, all the animals run away. Oh, that is Tasmanian devil. Run for your lives. All the other animals run away. But if all the animals run away, we wouldn't be talking about Tasmanian devil in the first place, because what
Exactly.
makes the character unique is there is one character, most likely Bugs Bunny, which does not run away. It
Right,
faces TAS. And
right,
that's why we are talking about TAS or Bugs Bunny or Looney Tunes, which
right.
entertains us in the first place. So either it is Bugs Bunny or it will be Daffy Duck. Either of these, they will end up encountering TAS. And I think that's what it is. Like you said, instead of running away from the things, if you start encountering, maybe that's
Face it
what
head
is
on.
going to bring the essence out of your life. Instead,
For sure.
otherwise, you'll be among the other animals that ran
That's
away.
it.
Oh, there is TAS.
I'd much rather, honestly, man, listen, I would much rather watch a movie that I enjoy by myself than sit with 10 people with one that I didn't like because I
Yeah.
decided to go with the group. That's just the truth.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And
So
that's
true.
I mean, total honest with yourself, man. So,
Yeah.
I always ask every guest this, because like I said, this was very good for to listen to as a host, to have somebody like you. Where can people
Mhm.
find John Giftah?
You can find me on my YouTube channel. You can find everything. You just search for John Giftah. You would find my YouTube channel, my Instagram account. You can also check my books like Unveil Your Purpose. I've written 3 books. Unveil Your Purpose is about finding your purpose. Who Am I is a Christian theme book, specifically
Mm,
about your identity. And another book, which again became a #1 new release on Amazon, is a small storybook called Gifta
mm,
and the Kingdom of Titanica. It's just a storybook with some life lessons in it. So you can
right.
find my books. You can find me on socials. You can find me
Mm.
on YouTube as well as on the podcast platforms. So yeah.
And you know what? And for full disclosure, for people who are listening, they don't need me to find you. This was just my opportunity for you to speak about yourself, and all the wonderful things that you've done. And I think a half an hour doesn't encompass the good things that you've done. But I really look forward to having this episode released, because I think John Giftah brings a lot of positivity to the world, and growth and understanding. And listen, for anybody who's listening, be your unique self, because at the end of the day, people's thoughts and processes you don't take to your grave. So be you and live the best version of you possible.
And thank you so much, Rashid. Thank you so much for having me. It was such
Yeah.
a joy with being with you all.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.